You have often been told that empaths are gentle creatures, fragile souls whose sensitivity is their curse and their gift. But you must understand, sensitivity is never passive. It is not a simple matter of being touched by the feelings of others, as though one were a leaf floating on the surface of the river. No, it is the river itself flowing through them, sometimes flooding, sometimes receding, but always carrying within it the sediments of countless lives, countless unspoken sorrows. And when that river grows polluted with pain that does not belong to them, when it becomes choked with the debris of manipulations and projections, then resentment begins to coil in the depths like a serpent in the mud. Empaths do not seek revenge as the world imagines it. Their revenge is not plotted in schemes or delivered in acts of cruelty. It is far more subtle and far more dangerous. For the empath, when turned resentful, wields a weapon that is invisible but devastating the withdrawal of their light. And the one who has fed on that light, the narcissist, the manipulator, the unconscious thief of vitality, suddenly finds themselves in a barren landscape, starved of the warmth they once took for granted. But let us go deeper, because the outer form of revenge is never the true story. We must look at the psychic movement, the archetypal drama that unfolds when an empath begins to see through the veil of their own compulsions. For years, perhaps decades, the empath has played the role of healer, Risquel, Christ figure in miniature, carrying the wounds of others as though salvation depended on their tears. They are drawn into relationships with those who are broken, and in these broken ones, they glimpse a reflection of their own shadowed child. And so they stay, pouring out, giving endlessly until they are emptied. It is here that resentment begins not as an act of will, but as an eruption of the unconscious. A dream may reveal it. An empath might see themselves walking through a house that is not theirs, picking up objects, carrying them until their arms ache, only to find that the house is endless, with no exit. They wake in despair, realizing they have been carrying burdens that never belonged to them. The resentment is not toward the people alone, but toward the archetype itself, the invisible compulsion that made them believe they were only valuable when suffering for others. Now you must see that this resentment is not petty. It is not simply anger at mistreatment. It is a soul revolting against its own one-sidedness. It is the psyche crying out, enough of being the sacrificial lamb, enough of being devoured. And in that cry, there is something profoundly creative. For when an empath resists the old pattern, when they withdraw their giving, they are not merely punishing another, they are liberating themselves from an archetypal possession. This liberation feels like betrayal to those who depended on them. The narcissist, who once drew sustenance from their compassion, experiences it as abandonment, even destruction. But to the empath, this revenge is not revenge at all. It is reclamation. It is the return of their soul to their own center. In the language of alchemy, resentment is the fire that blackens the vessel. It is the nigredo stage, the darkening, when everything once pure and shining is reduced to ash. But without nigredo, there can be no transformation. Only when the empath allows themselves to feel the bitterness, without denying it, without sanctifying it, does the alchemical work begin. For in those ashes lies the possibility of a new identity, one that is no longer enslaved to the archetype of martyrdom. But let me speak plainly, because there is a danger here. If the empath does not recognize the deeper meaning of their resentment, they may project it outward. They may become bitter, cynical, even cruel, wielding their sensitivity like a dagger rather than a balm. In this state, they become the very thing they once despised. Exploiters of emotion, manipulators of guilt. This is the shadow of the empath, the avenger who cloaks violence in the language of justice. Therefore, the true revenge of the empath is paradoxical. It is not to wound others, but to cease wounding themselves for the sake of others. It is to let the manipulator starve, not by striking them, but by refusing to feed them. It is the silent act of disappearing, of saying no, of closing the psychic doors to the narcissist. This feels like a death. To the empath, it feels like resurrection. You may ask, what does this mean for you? Listening now, it means that when you feel resentment rising in your soul, do not rush to suppress it with moral platitudes. Do not say to yourself, I must be kind, I must forgive, I must endure. That is the very prison of the archetype. Instead, listen to your resentment as a messenger. Ask, what is it revealing about my boundaries? Where have I given myself away in the name of love, when in truth it was fear, fear of being forgotten, fear of being unloved, fear of being unnecessary? The empath's resentment is the soul's rebellion against falseness. And when you heed it, when you honor its message, you find that your revenge is not destruction, but transformation. You no longer need to strike at the one who harmed you, because your very withdrawal exposes them. Their emptiness becomes visible, and you are free. Do not think this is easy. The path of individuation is never easy. To stand apart from those you once saved feels like betrayal. To let others face their own darkness without rescuing them feels like cruelty. But it is the deepest form of love, not love that enslaves, but love that liberates. The archetype of the empath belongs to the wounded healer, Chiron, the centaur who could not heal his own wound, yet taught others the mysteries of medicine. His wound gave him wisdom, but also bound him to endless service. Many empaths live under Chiron's spell, believing that their suffering is holy. But when resentment breaks the spell, the empath steps beyond Chiron into something greater. They realize that healing begins not with carrying others, but with reclaiming themselves. And this reclamation, this sacred selfishness, is the revenge. No one expects. It does not scream, it does not strike, it does not destroy.